What happened in qualifying for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix?
A lot to reflect on. A very busy, entertaining, and point-raising qualifying for sure. Let's get into Q1 then, shall we? Where the bottom five were Lawson, Hulkenberg, Ocon, Behrman and Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda, of course, P20 after a massive crash, a scary one for sure. I think we saw the aftermath and went, how on earth has he ended up there with all four corners of the car pretty mangled? And it turned out that he'd hit the wall and gone flying and got caught slightly by the catch fence, came down, flipped. Yeah, it was a big one. So I'm really glad to see Yuki walk away from that. But yeah, it just one that we genuinely were almost lost our breath slightly watching the replay.
It's not a part of the track that you'd expect a car to, go flying into. Lost it over the curb, bottomed out, and with these new Formula One cars, when you lose it big and you have a massive snap, you go straight into the wall. And yeah, very, very scary crash. Glad Yuki was okay. Hope the people behind, the catch fencing as well were okay, because there were a lot of people stood there and there'd have been a lot of flying debris. So fingers crossed that was all okay as well. But a shocking crash for Tsunoda. Yeah,
great to see Yuki obviously walk away from that one, from what I understand, unscathed. It was a big one, and it obviously didn't help that on the flip side of that, you had Hadjar doing incredibly well, and do we now start talking about the second seat again? Not quite. No. But yeah, a big mistake from Yuki. Not the only one either, because of course Doohan was replaced by Colapinto for this weekend and the next 5, and despite Colapinto actually making it out of Q1, he crashed at the end of it, and It's a tough one it'd probably be a tough pill to swallow for Colapinto, of course, as well. It's tough to see that he was, I think, 0.3 off Gasly going into that final set of runs in Q1, and you're thinking, good, cool. Doesn't even really matter if he gets knocked out in Q1, because the expectation wasn't really there. Some people felt I was being quite harsh by predicting him P20 in our little predictions game. That wasn't any disrespect to him. It was just the fact that he's jumping in a car with no experience as a rookie. The Alpine is not fantastic, and he was doing much better than both you and I had sort of predicted and anticipated. But then to undo all of that hard work, tough.
I was on this podcast saying that I think it was unfair that he kind of had this crash reputation because of the end of last season. Mentioned the difficult race in Brazil that a lot of people crashed out in. This obviously doesn't help that narrative, because he's smashed it immediately. And even if it'd have been better for him to just finish 17th, 18th, 19th in qualifying than it would be 15th and smashing it in the wall. So it just didn't need to happen. And he had a tough time of it anyway, because there was the confusion of him leaving the pits after the red flag as well, which looks like he'll get a penalty for as well. No word of that at the moment, but confusion there, and then the crash. Just not a great session for Colapinto.
Question from people on Patreon member RNB Sheep: how long does Colapinto last in the Alpine? I think he lasts the rest of the season, pretty much hands down. I feel like even with this crash, as long as he doesn't follow that up with 4 more over the next 4 weekends, I still think he's got a lot of potential. He's got a lot of backing. He's got a huge amount of support. It's the perfect harmony. He just needs to keep it within the white lines, which, he can bounce back from this. He can have a great race tomorrow and we'll forget about it. And I'm sure the team would too, in the sense of you have to support a driver that you've just plonked in the car, even if he has crashed. So I think he'll last the rest of the season, and I don't think it's really a conversation to be had just yet, despite the big error.
One thing that we haven't spoken about was a very unusual quote from Briatore that said, "I don't understand where this 5-race contract thing has come from, because that's not true." And then, of course, Alpine themselves tweeted, Colapinto is joining the team for the next 5 races. So he's kind of gone against that own
seems
statement.
Like Flavio is 100% keeping Colapinto in for the rest of the season. Alpine PR have gone, well, we can't really just... I think it sounds better if we give him a 5-race deal.
Does it, though? I think it sounds worse. That it sounds like they're messing about even more with their driver lineup. But that being said, like you say, with the fact that do you think he'll be in the rest of the season? And I agree with you that I think he will, unless it's absolute disaster.
As if that wasn't enough in Q1, we also had the massive debacle around Behrman versus Bortoletto and the fact of whether or not Behrman got over the line and set a lap time. Now, I have seen two different angles now, and I still don't know how Behrman didn't get through to Q2. But I've seen a light where he drives past, which is like looking back. So you can see as he's going, it's like kind of like an aerial sort of shot. You can see the red light flash much after, 3-4 seconds maybe after he crosses the line.
And you can see it's not on before he's crossed.
And also you can see the onboard where the start gantry, there's a light to the right, not the 5 red lights. That is a completely different set of lights. But there is a light to the right of that, which also flashes red after he has gone over the line. Don't forget that the start-finish line is essentially just after the right kink of the pit lane. It's not at the end, towards where the actual starting grid is.
My only reason I can think is that when they press the red flag button, there is some kind of delay that then gets to the light panels for a number of seconds, because that is the only way. But if you're going off the light panels, should you when do you call? When is a red flag a red flag? Is it when the light panels come on? Is it when someone is waving a red flag? Is it when the people in race control have pressed the big button that says red flag? Because if that's the case, then maybe they press the red flag button and there's a 5-second delay and the light panels come on. But that's not Ollie Behrman's fault. He's just driving to the line and reacting. And if that is the case, it's incredibly unlucky.
I'm sure there is a rule in the ruling book of, they've pressed the button and then maybe even on his dash, which is not something I've seen, maybe that's where the red flag comes up. But on circuit, if there's a delay, come on, guys. This is a big sport. We are a big boy these days in Formula One. We're not a niche sport anymore. These sorts of things just need to be aligned. Let's head to Q2 then, if we have to, where the bottom 5 in this session were Leclerc, Hamilton, Antonelli, Bortoletto and Colapinto. It has been 18 years since Ferrari won a Drivers' World Championship. They are Formula One, Ferrari of Formula One is Ferrari, all this sort of stuff. When is enough enough? When do we get to a point where we go, Ferrari are a midfield team? Because they got beaten by not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 7 different teams to get through to Q3. 7 different. We are the 8th fastest team on the grid, Tommy. Leclerc and Hamilton went out on fresh C6 tyres. It's not even like they just rolled the dice with a cheeky set. We've had a few runs and that. We'll get through it again. They were on brand new tyres.
It's grim reading anyway. This year they were incredibly hyped up going into the season. Obviously, this before testing, thinking they've got Hamilton in, they're cashing in all the Instagram likes and everything. But you have to build a good car, and they've changed their entire car. And my word, is it much worse than last year? And this is probably the most high-profile Ferrari disaster class this year, and it's happened in front of the Tifosi.
It's not even like it's back in the day when Q2, you're 11th or 12th on the grid, and you're like, fresh set of tyres. You can use whatever tyres you want. No longer. There is no benefit to starting 11th and 12th. P1 Patreon member Miss Sophie Walsh comes in with, what the hell was that? Both Ferraris were knocked out by Aston Martins on mediums. I'm so very glad I'm not a Ferrari fan. Now, I'm not going to say too much about the whole medium choice, because there's this whole slight confusion, I think, with this step softer tyre, the C6, which has been introduced this weekend, and it's not that much, if quicker at all, for some teams between the C5, the medium, and the C6, the soft. So it looks worse for sure if you just look at that and go, wow, the Astons on mediums have beaten the Ferraris. But Leclerc was 4 tenths. If I'm going to have some small, tiny glimmer of just positivity, it was 4 tenths off the fastest time, who was Carlos Sainz in Q2, just to kind of add another little curveball of storyline there. So yeah, it was a crazy Q2 session, don't get me wrong, and Ferrari were on the wrong end of the stick for that. Right, okay, let's go to Q3. Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Norris, Alonso, Sainz, Albon, Stroll, Hadjar and Gasly are your top 10. And first question in this segment is from P1 Patreon member Matthew Cole 04. Oscar seems to be so far ahead of Lando. Should Lando be worried? I've been very vocal in the fact that I think Norris has a higher ceiling potential at this particular moment. I am starting to eat my words because I think Piastri, he delivered to a level that was phenomenal today. It's not a case of like, he's put a great lap on the board, but Norris, had he put everything together, would have been better. Norris, did make another mistake on his final qualifying lap, and it's cost him not just a front row, but to be starting fourth behind Russell. He's going to have to clear Russell at turn 1 tomorrow on lap 1 if he wants to have any hope of beating not just Verstappen but Piastri as well. I'm pretty speechless, to be honest with you. I was not expecting a Piastri blockbuster at the start of this season like he's produced. But he's doing it time and time again, and he doesn't make mistakes. Australia is, of course, that one mistake that stands out, but that was such treacherous conditions. Since then, I can't think of one.
Piastri is driving so well. The first time in his career, he's got a dominant car, or maybe not even that dominant, but just a quick car underneath him that he really, really likes, and he just doesn't seem phased or worried at all by his teammate Max, the rest of the grid. He's just doing his job, and he's doing his job absolutely superbly. And yeah, Lando should definitely be worried because, my God, his pace is incredible.
Next question, Human and Hero asks, is Norris's title fight over? I don't think we get to these kind of questions until he is at least 60 points behind. One DNF can change the whole complexion of the championship. One Piastri Verstappen turn 1 incident changes the whole complexion of this championship. So you cannot have these conversations until at least the halfway point where we can really sort of analyse what's happened in this season so far. Verstappen is still well within winning this title as well. He's just going to have to hope that the Red Bull is decent round more tracks than it isn't. But no, it's not over for Norris. It isn't. Norris gets so much heat on social media, and yes, he is making mistakes. He's not performing to the level that I believe he has within him. But Piastri is forcing those mistakes. Piastri has taken a step up this year, and just being able to put in those kind of performances puts pressure on the other side of the garage.
For all Lando's shortcomings and us talking about him, those two collide on lap 1. Lando wins the race or finishes second. He's leading the championship. So it can change. And we've seen even reliability and engine failure, even though it's so rare nowadays that it happens, it can change a championship. Look at Rosberg and Hamilton. But with Lando, my word, does that guy need to just put some qualifying laps together, because I feel like after every single qualifying we're having this chat about Lando not hooking up a lap, and I don't think it's unfair to say maybe the entire season we're looking at the fact that Lando has kind of not put 2 qualifying laps. He put in a banker which wasn't particularly quick, 3/10 off what his teammate managed to do in the end, and then messed up on his final run. And this is just a trend that seems to have happened since that first race that he was so brilliant in and did a great job. And Lando's answered his critics here, and he is a new driver. It's been mistake after mistake, mainly in qualifying, and he's just not happy with the car, and he's constantly making qualifying mistakes. And when it is a qualifying championship, that is going to cost you big.
Question from P1 Patreon member PGO Stick 1. Was adding the C6s a good idea, if only because there are now 2 viable qualifying tyres? I think it was absolutely a great idea. I like the fact that we're trying something new. I like the fact that Pirelli are being told to do something slightly different. Let's try and force non-one-stop races, and let's see what tomorrow brings. I don't particularly think having 2 viable qualifying tyres changes much, if anything. It just feels like they then have more really fast tyres to use and kind of puts less pressure on the teams. So from that side of things, it's not exactly what they were planning or intending for it to be. You don't want to be... I don't know, because I'm now thinking about what the race will look like. For me, the C6 will have 0 use tomorrow.
It's pointless tomorrow.
it'll be medium and hard. And I believe that they will, because you want the C6 as a tyre that you can jump on, do 15 laps on them, and they're much quicker than the C5s, C4s. And then that is viable in the race, in my head at least. So what we've seen this weekend so far is not what I believe Pirelli or Formula One wanted from this new batch.
It was a cool quirk of qualifying. Of course, we saw George Russell go on to the mediums and actually put in a lap quicker than Lando, which got him into third place. Would he have been any quicker on new softs? Maybe it'd have been in exactly the same position. But when it comes to the race, I will save my ranting about this decision for the race and how that pans out, because I've got some opinions and I feel like I know how the race is going to go. And when it does, then they will.
Oh, Tommy Gold pop off in the main race. So look forward to that one tomorrow. But fingers crossed we get a banger and Tommy doesn't.
Oh, yeah. I really hope.
It's a win-win for you wonderful listeners
win-win.
and watchers.
You get a
because
rant, if not,
rant or a banger. Question from people on Patreon member Heather, more or less. How has Alonso made it to P5, particularly on a scrub set of tyres? I saw the Astons going out on mediums and they weren't shiny. And we both thought, well, there's probably not much to improve there. And they've gone and banged out another great lap, which was unexpected, to say the least. What does this mean? I don't know. Like, the Astons, anyway, are quite unique in their way of, I remember they tend to do a lap in practice to scrub the tyres to then make them slightly more durable for the race and things like that are quite unique. But for Aston Martin to have put in a phenomenal qualifying, when you reflect on their season, it's been shocking. Stroll has been the only one to score points so far this year, and they've both made it to Q3. And to be fair to them, you have to just give them praise, don't you? Because they've done a great job and kind of put the car where perhaps it doesn't belong.
Yeah, it's concerning for my less than 50 points prediction that one Adrian Newey upgrade has launched them into a P5 in qualifying. So maybe there is performance to be had and they can unlock something. But of course, as an Alonso fan, I'm more than happy to see him back where he deserves to be. Of course, it's an absolute chasm between those top four and the midfield, which now, of course, includes Ferrari. But
okay, all right. Well, that didn't need to be.
But Alonso, yeah, great performance from him, and it was very close between those. I think any of those drivers, maybe Gasly, I don't think had the pace in the Alpine, could have popped it in P5. I think Hadjar was a great shout for a P5 and would have been an amazing. And what a statement, going back to the start of the podcast, of had Hadjar been P5, we probably would be kind of talking about those Yuki Tsunoda rumours and joking and banter maybe a little bit more seriously. But he was kicking himself that he messed up, wasn't he, with that?
Yeah, it was a small mistake.
A huge chance.
Which I think it was very similar to what we saw with Colapinto, wasn't it? In that exact
absolutely.
area, just dips the front left wheel. It's so hard to get those first couple of corners linked up because you want to then slingshot yourself down towards the next left-right where Yuki went off. But yeah, Hadjar just a small mistake cost him massively because he was looking really good. But still P9, still plenty of chances to score points. Tomorrow, Sainz and Albon, they've kind of gone very quietly, unnoticed P6 and P7 for them in the Williams once again, when that's exactly where I thought Ferrari were going to be, but instead, again, it's Williams. So, yeah, big shout out to both of those guys, 0.04 of a second separating those two.
That shows credit to Williams that a 6th and 7th for a Williams is almost a non-event now.
Yeah.
And that's credit to them.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be live tomorrow, of course. Matt Pugh and Tommy on YouTube and Twitch for our watch-along. I'm really excited to see how the first lap unfolds, whether Norris can get Russell, whether Verstappen can get ahead of Piastri. I think that will be important for the race. Piastri, I believe, is going to have the upper hand. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
It's so true that we've barely even mentioned that Max is P2 on the grid. Are we going to get a repeat of Saudi, where those
and
two
Russell
don't
as
give
well.
Hey,
P3. Fail to elaborate. See you tomorrow.
does Russell go for the softs and try and get a good launch off the line and block everyone?
You mean the mediums or the softs?
The softest softs.
You mean the red ones? Aren't they the same as the yellow ones, though?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows what those tyres are now? But Piastri versus Verstappen into turn 1 could be very exciting. We know that Piastri now will race Max very hard. And Max is probably, he's Max Verstappen, so he always goes for the win. And he also knows that these are the opportunities. If he has any hope this year of fighting the McLarens for the championship, these are the circuits he needs to get wins on, basically, because we could be at Monaco next week and he's 9th, 10th, or whatever, because that Red Bull is just so unknown.
It certainly is. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Goodbye.